This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Very Hard to Submit. Go to vhtsny.com and check out their kimonos, compression gear, and apparel. This is a brand we are excited to be supported by. Their gear is high quality with a clean design. Go to vhtsny.com and see for yourself.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Grappler Union Podcast. Javier Palomo alongside Anthony Zito. Our guests today are both members of Team Curran. We have Joey Diehl, who is a professional MMA fighter and black belt under Jeff Curran, and Kyle Perkins, who's a purple belt under Jeff. Enjoy.
It ain't the 6 minutes. It's what happens in that 6 minutes.
You told me using any technique that works, never to limit myself to one style. Keep an open mind.
When I hit you to take part, we're here to take over.
In order to become more peaceful, in order for you to become better and strategize your life.
Yeah.
All right, we're live. All right.
Yeah.
Joey
Just talking
Diehl.
about how I need to be put in the cone of shame. Is that
exactly.
what's going on here?
So we have Joey and Kyle.
Kyle.
Awesome, man. Welcome to my
Thanks for having
humble
us.
abode.
Yeah.
No, I got to say personally, been trying to set this one up for a while. Finally got things worked out timing wise. Joey, you're a busy man.
Pretty busy.
Yeah.
I try to be. Life is better
You're
when you're
coming
busy.
from pretty far away, right?
That's
It's like an hour.
Yeah.
Kyle drove. Thanks. Thanks for that.
Got your back. Yeah.
Thanks, Kyle.
Caddy.
I don't like driving, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Makes you fall asleep.
Yeah,
Right?
I do. I fall asleep driving all the time.
That's a dangerous
It's very
habit.
dangerous.
Yeah.
It's one of the most dangerous.
I've done it. I did it when I was 16 years old, and I fell asleep driving.
It's not good.
And flipped my car.
Oh, God.
Me too. I did
you
the
had-
same.
Did you get out?
Yep. I had a 96 convertible Mustang, and I ended up upside
Shut the
down.
fuck
Yeah.
up.
Wait. Did you say Mustang?
Yeah.
So
Mustang
I had a
convertible.
1968 Mustang Fastback.
Okay.
My
so,
first car, high school.
Cars.
Me too.
Cool.
Yep.
And I was driving home, and we just got done TPing our high school.
Like
Okay.
you
And,
did.
like doing stupid shit
Like
like
you did,
kids,
yep.
right? And I was supposed to spend the night at a friend's house, and I'm like, nah, I live close. I'm just gonna head home. I was like one town away, so I'm just driving, and I remember looking at like Laramie Bridge on Ogden Avenue, and just like looking up and like closing my eyes, and I was like literally like 4 blocks from my house, and next thing I know, I just felt my body getting shook around and heard this loud bang, and then I ended up upside down.
Yep.
And then I opened my eyes, I heard the engine just because it had straight pipes.
Okay.
So engine was just floored, like pedal was all the way down. I'm like, whoa. And so I kicked the door open, I'm crawling out, sparks coming out. I'm like, oh shit. I said, maybe I could like push it over and go home. I didn't know what I was thinking. I just fucking woke up. I don't know. And I couldn't do that. So the ambulance came and all that fun stuff. But only I got some fat lips and like pulled like a ligament in my leg.
Could have been way worse.
Could have been no seatbelt.
Oh, my God.
I don't think I had
seatbelt.
mine either.
Crazy.
I was completely fine. Yeah. It like skidded on the rain, like it was a little rainy on the road, right? So my back tire skidded a little bit, and it skidded into some lady's gravel driveway. So that made it skid more, and then it dropped off into like the ditch. So that made it only flipped once, but it flipped right over.
Yeah.
And then so like when I don't think I got knocked out, but when I kind of came to because it was a convertible, like I'm like on the ground underneath the car because like the top just ripped off.
Fuck.
Right? Yeah. And I remember, like, I thought to myself, I was going to kick the window out below me and crawl out. And then I just thought to myself, like, I could probably try to open this door. And I just opened the door and got out.
You just wanted to be cool. Kick the window.
Exactly. And then when I got out, some lady had stopped. And, like, I remember I only thought about this after I got in the ambulance, but I kept thinking of, like, how I should have messed with her. Like, she stopped. She must have just saw me and stopped. And I thought about I should have got out and looked at her and be like, why'd you cut me off? Like, what were you doing? This happens all the time. Can you help me flip this over? Yeah. So, Mustang's not good for anyone under 20, though.
I agree.
Well, apparently the sonorous hum of the engine just like naturally puts you to sleep. All that power just rocks you to sleep.
I think that's what it's from, though. When I was a kid, my mom used to put me in the car, and every time to make me fall asleep, she would put me in the car.
That was a thing.
On
right.
this,
At least that's
me
a
and
story,
Joey
my
can
friend.
bond.
Okay.
I'm not much of a car guy. I've
me
never
neither.
owned a Mustang, unfortunately, I guess. But
We're not in the club.
Although perhaps fortunately, because less accidents that way. It seems. But exact same thing. My mom would.
Yeah, so every
be
time
like,
I get in the car,
You just
start
conk
to
out.
I start to fall asleep.
That makes sense though, because that's a
it just
thing.
trained my body. I'm like,
That's it.
See, my cousins get motion sickness, so they can't sleep in the car. They can't read. They can't even like look down away from the windows really without like getting a sense of motion sickness. I would be in the backseat with them as a kid, and I'd just like long out, right? Resting my head on one of their shoulders.
I sleep better in cars than I do in beds.
Which is. I mean, strangely, like I sleep well sitting up, possibly because of that. I don't really know. But as a result, I also sleep very well on trains and planes.
Yeah, so, which is good. It's a good quality.
I try not to fall asleep on planes. It's just such a good time to like sit there. I'm not driving. I can read. I can catch up on all the stuff I don't normally have time to do.
I absolutely love plane rides for that reason. Just to be able to, have 3 hours to read or do whatever you want, right?
Freedom for your brain. You can't do anything physically, so you have to do it mentally.
That's why I need a self-driving car. A self-driving car.
Yeah.
I'm down with the self-driving car for that purpose.
I agree with that.
It's got to come
When
soon.
is that going to be affordable?
Not soon enough.
2023.
2023?
Yeah.
This is a very accurate prediction there, sir.
I can wait.
I can wait. Yeah, I can wait.
Yeah, I think the self-driving cars is going to be, obviously I don't think we're there yet, but once everyone has it, I think it's going to be totally a game changer.
Whole different world, right?
Whole different world. But I think there's a look at like the younger generation who grew up with self-driving cars are going to look at us
like a bunch of maniacs.
Why the fuck were you guys driving? You guys were
How
driving?
reckless.
Right.
And
how did that work?
Yeah, there'll be no stories about you guys flipping your car and things like that.
No.
Yeah, there's,
Like, how'd you flip a car that drive itself?
Yeah, like, how the fuck's that happen?
What was wrong with your AI? I mean, like, was there
It's
a
gonna be
glitch in
there.
the Matrix?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be, I don't know how that whole thing's it's going to take a while because you have so many different people having cars.
Well, I mean, like if you started on normal streets, like the probability that there's accidents caused by other humans is probably pretty high. But maybe Google will just be like, you know what? We're going to buy this small town in the middle of nowhere, and this is going to be self-driving town land.
It's like a practice.
Self-driving car land. And
just give everyone cars.
Yeah, like you get a car and you get a car.
Well, why would you need your own? Like,
Well,
why wouldn't it be like why whenever you want to go somewhere? Yeah, there's just cars on the road,
Like
and
the
one just
scooters,
comes in.
That's a good point, right?
like you wouldn't need your own personal one.
that's
You would just need something. And imagine the convenience of like because they would communicate with all the other ones. If it told you you'd be somewhere in 19 minutes, you would be there in 19 minutes. It wouldn't have to tell you there's traffic or like it would know.
But
I
people
never
like
thought
their
about it
own
that way.
style,
Yeah.
right? So the whole point
That's
of cars
true.
is like,
Right.
like you guys.
Yeah,
I'm not a car guy, so I don't really know. But people like, they're so obsessed with their type of car. Maybe even like detailed the car out and things like that.
Right.
So for everyone to go
it comes
with
an
their
identity, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah,
becomes a
identity.
personality
I don't
thing.
know. I never thought about what you just said because that makes sense. Like if someone was to come up with that idea of like, okay, we're just gonna have cars like Uber, just you're gonna call a car and it's gonna just come pick you up and like all taxis and no one owns them, but then who's gonna be
somebody owns them.
someone's got to pay for
owns
them, so you
But-
got to pay for that service.
So it becomes part of your taxes.
Right.
It's a government. Yeah.
Do you guys remember the movie, the original Total Recall?
Yes, absolutely.
Remember the self-driving car
Yeah, the
there?
taxi
and the
guy.
taxi. So I
Yeah.
hope it's something like that where we actually have something to talk to.
Right.
Right. I mean, we're getting there increasingly.
Was he like
so.
Johnny Cab?
Remember you like spun around,
Yeah.
like talked. So that's awesome. That was the best movie.
Oh man, that's a classic.
Yeah, it's
but
good.
not to focus too much on the self-driving car thing, but I actually saw, and I want to say it was like a Google exec, but don't quote me on that because it could be some guy from other, some other tech company like Amazon or whatnot. But they were talking about, and like, for those that are sensitive, like this is going to sound dangerously like communism, but they were talking about like one of the big things about like owning almost anything, mind you, is you don't use it that much. So like even your car, which you're probably going to drive like to work, from work, maybe to the gym or to the store and back again, like you're only using it for minutes, hours at a time in a 24-hour period. So like that whole time that your car right now, our car's sitting out there, it's not actually doing anything for us.
Well, that's why they're Airbnb cars now.
Right. But that's the whole thing. Like once you get a self-driving car, you can get picked up by any car, anytime, anywhere. And when it's not being used by you, it'll be used by somebody else. So now you suddenly need less actual vehicles because we're sharing the vehicle. And that applies to so many other things.
I think it's the same thing with houses, like owning a house, to think about how much work goes into owning a house, right? Or even to buy a house, the expense of it.
Well, think about like just one office building in the city. Like how many of those rooms aren't used all day? But there's a million people on the street who are probably gonna freeze to death. Like that seems a little weird to me. Like I know it's like they should probably have to earn it a little bit, but there's a lot of free rooms in there. You know?
We're, okay, before we were kind of communist, now we're going deep communist.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I think when people talk about like AI and people taking jobs and stuff like that, like, when I grew up, it was like, there was no computers, none of that stuff existed.
Right.
But you'd hear about like the
Casino's old.
but you'd hear like machines doing stuff. And even when I started, before I got into computers, I was a machinist and we would do everything by hand. We'd, hand make parts, stuff like that. Then the CNC machine came out where it's all automated and everyone's like, oh, it's going to take all of our jobs. Now we don't. Then you had to like learn, how to do, AutoCAD and program these things and then it'd make the parts for you. But I always thought like it'd be kind of neat, like if you go to like iRobot, that Will Smith movie,
okay,
where people would buy AI to kind of help them out, and if I bought AI for myself, I'd be like, hey, dude, you go to work, I'm going snowboarding today, and now I paid for my AI to go do my work for me. He's a part of my family, and he's going to go do all this stuff for me. But I bought that as opposed to him taking a job.
Sounds like slavery to me.
Yeah.
Slavery for the AI.
Yeah, like
for sure.
That always becomes the theme of the sci-fi movie, right?
Of course.
But no one ever talks about robot rights. Like no one fights for their rights.
Of course.
Nobody does right now because they don't have faces.
Right.
Once they have faces, that's when it gets creepy.
Why would you have to pay for your robot to go? Like if you're doing your job to contribute back to society for things, why wouldn't everyone just make enough robots to do all that stuff for all of us?
Exactly.
And no one would actually have to have a title of work for themselves.
Well,
like the comedian Doug Stanhope who has a joke like, isn't the goal complete unemployment?
Right.
Don't you want isn't that the goal? Yeah, we're complaining about it.
It's that middle ground that's rough.
Yes.
Because while a whole bunch of people are employed and you're like the one lazy bastard with the robot, like you're getting judged harshly.
Yes.
Very harshly, sir.
What sparked my interest in this whole concept is that, Elon Musk came out with that driving truck that drives itself. And then people were like, well, it's taking all the truck drivers' jobs away from them. And I'm like, well, if a truck driver was to buy that truck and he put it into his fleet, and now he assigns that truck to do certain tasks, and then he's still working, but he's not actually physically driving the truck.
You're kind of looking at that wrong, actually. Okay. Because what's really like most truck drivers, make decent money. A lot of guys become owner operators. Okay. They own their own truck. That becomes their livelihood. They're going to sink a ton of money into that truck above and beyond their own living expenses back home and whatnot. But only once you start getting to that level where like you're running a business where you have a fleet of trucks, are you going to be thinking about, let's have 4 humans and 4 robot vehicles. So like that's great from a business perspective, but that's for sure like beyond a shadow of doubt. At the point where you're deciding I could have 8 employees or I could have 2 employees and 6 robots, you've definitely taken away 6 jobs from them.
Right.
Yeah, that's where it's going to start. Is the guys with the money that they can afford to do something crazy like that. Like Amazon is going to be like, oh well, drones and self-driving vehicles is the way of the future. We don't really want to have to pay delivery people.
Yeah, but do you get to complain because like the guy who made horseshoes, when they started coming out with cars, does he get to like, oh no, you can't come out with cars because then people are going to stop using horses and I won't have business anymore.
This is the march of progress.
If your value can be done by some like little drone that just carries stuff around, like maybe you should
maybe you should get a more important job.
Yeah, So I mean, maybe you should do something that a computer can't do. And I guess computers are getting too good where they can do stuff that I can't even do. But
right.
Yeah,
I'm unqualified for this
conversation. Well, no. Hopefully,
I'm just a grappler.
Hopefully, Zito doesn't get his way because he wants the machines to teach us jiu-jitsu as well. But for now, that is strictly
I don't want them to
teach
teach us jiu-jitsu. I want them to be able to.
I'm sorry. You want the ref. You want computer refs. That's right.
I want computer. I just want them to be able to ref.
How about judge, like for fighting? Like MMA?
Well, yeah, exactly. MMA. I think that if you could generate enough data for, an AI or whatever, a camera just to look at the match and be able to tell who pointed this, who that, and then we won't have any more problems. Like no
That's-
more human things.
That's what you think.
Human
That's what you
input.
think.
Because think about look at the rules for the IBJJF. Let's just say, and how
we're back on the IBJJF already.
I know.
Yep.
But what I'm saying is that if you could load all that content into a AI or some type of thing that you just watch the match and they can tell you who scored what the score, who got the advantage, who's stalling, all that stuff.
You take opinion out.
Exactly. Take that whole like, oh, he's with Atos or he's with whomever, or he's with that.
So basically,
It's
you
nice.
just like robots more than humans.
No, it's just I like things
Robot
to be,
accountability.
I just like things to be the right way. I don't like things to be
Yeah. Well,
gray
anytime
areas.
humans,
Subjective,
humans
right.
are always going
Humans are always going to fuck things
flaws
up.
of- yeah.
Exactly, and
Bias.
that's what it is.
You know what? I would not go that far just yet. Like I think you're thinking too far into the future here.
Maybe.
But what I would really like, honestly, is and granted, I understand like a lot of us do martial arts and there's some degree of like traditional attire, and we don't want to mess with that because tradition. But like, let's take MMA for an example. Dudes are wearing gloves. Trained athlete usually can tell that wasn't a very good shot. Didn't hit him very hard, landed, glancing blow, whatever. Okay. Judge is not always so much. In fact, if past judging is any indication, oftentimes quite the opposite, cannot tell at all. But if there was data that said, oh, like he hit that dude with 190 pounds of force.
reading.
Yeah, like a
exactly.
life bar almost. Like not literally.
I don't
but
know all the details, but I know that they started using that.
Really?
Yeah. So actually, at this event, I just know that Felice actually had, I don't know what they call them, but some kind of sensor in their gloves underneath the tape.
So at the
But I don't know
past-
what they're actually checking for or what
Okay.
they're doing with it.
Huh.
But I don't know if
That's
it's just for
fascinating.
statistics,
Yeah, yeah.
like the speed and
Yeah, I'd love to know.
About
but
Felice
actually-
at the UFC event, this past
Yeah,
UFC
yeah.
event. Yeah.
So we should be even more specific, though there aren't that many Felices out there fighting, I don't think. So we're
Felice
talking
Herrig.
about
Yeah,
Felice
teammate.
Herrig at the UFC.
Yeah.
So wow, that's really cool. I did
so
not know
I don't
that.
know that many details about it. I haven't asked anyone, but I saw that and I
Well,
thought that's
I'm looking
super
into that as
interesting.
soon as
look
I
into
can.
that.
Yeah,
Little sports science action.
I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm actually not a big fan of those shows because there was oftentimes like a little bit of fuckery going.
yes, yeah.
But
They can do it much better.
Yeah. But I like just having that raw data, those statistics would be an amazing thing.
interesting, yeah.
Yeah. Like actually knowing which hits landed with power, how fast the punches were traveling, get an accurate count of certain things. Yeah, it'd be great.
Well, I was just saying that to Joey on the way out here. Like, I feel like for decisions, they should probably just go like,
Look at the numbers.
that was a good fight. We'll tell you who really won tomorrow. Like, we're gonna go and
Oh,
really
yeah, this is a
analyze
cool
everything.
idea.
And I know it would kind of piss some people off, but like, you got to see the fight. You got to watch. Like, what difference would that make
imagine,
to you?
Imagine if there's a close fight, like really close
Yeah.
fight, and everyone's like, "All right, go home. We'll sleep on it. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll talk about it. You guys can make your case. Be like, here's what I did good. We get to go home and watch it, and like,
Right.
it'd be interesting.
I
Not
would
for
be
this
interested
the
in
younger
seeing
generation
it.
now wants everything now.
Instant, yeah, they
instant,
want
Man, I
instant
was thinking
gratification.
younger
It would work.
generation.
It's just
Yeah,
it's
of course.
interesting thought process.
But,
Almost like lawyering. You'd have like
Yeah.
a lawyer be like, "All right, my client, in the first round had this. They landed this many shots at this point.
This could be an excellent fight series or a Netflix series. We could call it like The Fight Lawyer or
Yes.
something like
Yeah,
that.
they
We could
just
go back
argue.
and judge old fights.
And
yeah.
then maybe they get overturned.
Overturned
Right? We get like
decisions.
a jury of so many people.
Yeah, there we go. There
All right,
we
I'm
go.
in.
Yeah, let's
I'll talk to
make this a
Netflix.
show.
Yeah.
You have your people talk to my people.
I have no people.
I don't either.
Kyle's my people.
I drove out here. That's all I can do.
He's my people.
Kyle, you also fight, don't you?
I do
You
jiu-jitsu.
compete, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've done fight to win a few times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had one MMA fight, one amateur fight I lost.
Nice.
But yeah, so mainly jiu-jitsu now. So
Kyle's like my jujitsu guy. So like when I'm, like I said earlier to you guys, like anytime I have a question like who someone is in grappling, I'm like, Kyle, who is this person?
Yeah.
And he'll
He's
tell
your
me.
nerd? That's
He's
what
my
you're saying?
jujitsu nerd.
Joey and Jeff Cost jiu-jitsu fanboys. Yeah.
No,
Every gym
maybe.
needs one man.
It's a good thing. It's a
Yeah.
good thing.
No,
Absolutely.
he's like and it's like everyone, like all the details. He really stays up to date on like grappling world,
YouTube
whereas I just
jiu-jitsu all
don't
day.
as much. And like my jujitsu came from MMA,
I see.
and he's like you're more in the jujitsu world, so I rely on him for that knowledge. I'm like who's grappling against who, and all the details. So.
When did you start jiu-jitsu or MMA?
I started training when I was 14
Oh, wow.
with Jeff, same place I've been my whole life.
Wow.
My whole jiu-jitsu life. And my whole intention was for fighting. I didn't know, I only knew of jiu-jitsu because of MMA.
I feel like a lot of us start off that way, like many of us get our initial exposure to that. Certainly in my generation.
Yeah, it's the classic story of like you saw UFC 1, like this is my story. I saw Royce Gracie and it's like, oh, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I have to look that up. Looked it up. The closest place was Crystal Lake right by my house, Jeff Curran. So it was like kind of perfect setup.
So you've been with Jeff long enough that like that was in the Lynx Academy days then, wasn't it?
Or is that you're still Team Curran.
Okay. Yeah. So that was after
I've been in, let me think, four different
locations.
Yeah, starting.
Well, just moved, right?
Yeah, we just moved about a month ago.
So yeah.
Oh, you moved again?
Yeah, we just moved recently. Still in Crystal Lake, but
so that because I went to an open mat. I think it was Thanksgiving last year, or this past year, or something like that. And so you're not in that facility anymore?
No. Yeah, we're in a new place.
Holy shit!
Even way better.
Get out! That place was amazing.
Yeah, the last one's,
This one's nice.
Jeff
This
does
is
not
nice,
go downward. He always the place always gets better and better.
Because it was giant.
Yeah,
it's a huge place. You had a sauna in there, and showers were beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful now. You guys got to come visit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, you guys are always welcome. That'd be fun.
Man.
Yeah, the new place, the mat space, it's a little bit more just open, right? So I don't know if you remember last time.
2 sections.
Yeah, with 2 sections now. It's just this giant mat space, and it's almost like a warehouse kind of feel to it.
But where would you find another place in Crystal Lake?
Yeah. Right down the street, probably like 8 minutes away.
Yeah, I know where the location is.
Perfect,
because I literally passed by it the last time I was out that way for David's seminar.
Right.
But I'm like, man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So what happens to your old place? Is it like you just
I think they're making apartment buildings. To be honest.
I don't really know exactly.
Really?
I don't know.
So you guys intended on moving?
We had to get out. Like,
you had to because they were selling or something like that. I see.
I don't know all the details exactly, but I know that we had to get out, and kind of Jeff proactively made it happen and put a lot of work in to get the new place, and it's beautiful, man. I love it. Wow. It's definitely my favorite setup of the 4 I've been to.
Definitely. Right. Jeff put a lot of time in. It was crazy. He was there every night till 3-4 in the morning, and then back there at 8. Just working every day for months. It's awesome. Yeah.
That's wild,
man. So you started at 14. You start doing jiu-jitsu, traditional gi jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I started. Just going to regular classes, and it was so different back then. Like when I first started, it makes me sound like an old man, but like back then, when we just go and I was a wrestler too, so I had some sense of grappling. But like my first class, we just rolled.
Okay.
Like I went in and like we trained a little bit and just started rolling, and you know what I mean. Like so different than what most people's first.
Just figure it out, guys.
It was a little bit of that, but like I was a huge my biggest kind of advantage was I was a super nerd MMA fan.
Okay.
I knew everything about everything. Like I've seen every UFC. I owned every UFC from like UFC 1 to UFC 90,
right.
or whenever. Like, I was like a super fan. So I had that as my knowledge.
Right.
You're like, I was like, I've seen chokes.
I've seen a triangle. Yeah.
I know things. And then just go get beat up, at 14 years old. But,
You've literally been doing jiu-jitsu half your life at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Longer than I've not done jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy how much more experienced Joey is than like me and him are the same age, graduated high school at the same time, and I just started after high school, and he just started like your freshman year or something like that. The difference in knowledge is crazy. Yeah.
But it was like I didn't have other things that I like to do. This is all I did.
Right.
Especially in high school, wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I shouldn't say that. I don't like other sports, to be honest. I never liked. No, I tried playing football.
It's okay. You can totally say that here. You're in a safe place.
I was never good at other sports. Like I played football. I was pretty good at football because I was good at like running into people.
Right.
But I wasn't. I hated when someone threw me the ball. Like I was like, I don't want to catch. You were good at football, right?
Yeah, I liked football.
Yeah, I was like, I never wanted to like. Be the offensive. I just wanted to go tackle people. And like I did like wrestling moves when I was playing football as a kid. I would like do like a sweep single and like take them down.
Nice.
Yeah. But just team sports was never my thing.
I get that.
Just a natural, like grappling felt natural. Everything else felt like a weird, I played soccer as a kid, like all the classic sports that everyone tries when they're little. But nothing ever like felt natural until I started, getting into grappling. Grappling just is way easier for me to comprehend.
Did you compete in jiu-jitsu before you fought?
Yeah, I did a couple little like Naga tournaments when I was like 15 years old. That was like my first grappling. And I remember that being like, I'm fighting. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And it's funny now that it's kind of a little full circle. I still fight and I'm going to keep fighting for a while. But, doing more grappling tournaments now, it's like, I don't even think about it as like some people take it so serious. I can feel the energy from an opponent sometimes of this is the biggest thing in the world, or like this is their kind of like to the death kind of feel, like they're going to win no matter at any cost to their body. And I look at jiu-jitsu now as just my playtime. You know, this is the fun for me.
You know, you had a video that I saw where there may have been a little bit of, I don't want to say too much playtime, but one of our past guests and you were in an absolute division together. and that was quite playful.
Yeah, I had so much fun.
Oh,
yeah,
you were
a big boy.
Absolute with Constantine?
that
How did
nuts?
that happen?
It's an absolute.
But they're on the same
no
belts.
gi expert division.
Oh, expert.
Yeah, it's just expert, no gi too. Yeah.
Expert. I'm like, how'd that work out?
He's a big boy.
Constantine's, he's
Nice
a big
guy.
kid.
He's a nice guy, but he's
kid.
big.
He and I used to do judo together. So,
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's a big kid.
No fun. No fun. But it was a good
How'd
time.
that go? Did you win?
No, I just ran away from him, kind of did circles and made jokes and had fun. But
It's amusing. I recommend everyone look up this video on Joey's Instagram. It's a good time.
yeah, I had a match before that too, like another guy who was like 210 or something like that, big guy, but also not a black belt, so I can see the skill level difference and strong guy, and like to me it's very enjoyable. Like I'll grapple against anyone in the world, no matter what size, when the skill level is a little bit different. Like obviously the closer we are in skill, like the less of a gap in skill, the more that matters, right? The bigger they are. Yeah. So like to me it's so much fun. Like I was having a blast with that, but then when I grappled with Constantine, it was just, I saw him like lay on someone before the match before me, and the guy like ribs popped, and I was like, maybe I should just kind of play on the outside. I wasn't gonna like pull guard and like be underneath him getting crushed. So I just had fun with it. But yeah, he wanted to roll. Actually, when I was out by your place, and Constantine was there. He was there.
Yeah, he was there, and. He's like, he looked at me. I'm like, no, I can't roll with you, bro.
That's how I am nowadays.
I'm old and little, man. I can't do it.
I used to be the person. I was telling Kyle about this. I would just roll with everyone and like ask everyone, even like the scariest, biggest guys. I'd be like, hey, can we roll a little bit? Right. And now I'm like very selective and like a little bit more careful.
You got to be. Now I'm very selective now.
You got to be, because you're old as dust. Yes. You got a professional career going. I don't know. I still do it. Like maybe it's not smart, but I still have that.
I've learned some lessons too. I've had some bad experiences, like little things, and the little injuries add up.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, even when I know the guys, even if these like white belt, a big white belt, maybe like I rolled with a kid that takes one of my classes, and he was like 220 maybe. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, I know he's going to be aggressive because he's a white belt. He's going to be spazzy. So I'm just going to like, just let him do what he wants to do. I'm just going to defend and relax. And he just did something like I didn't expect him to do as normal.
Because he's a white belt.
Because he's a white belt. Where he just like tried to like I'm clearly he has 100 pounds on me, right? And I'm just like, well, he's not just going to try to muscle. He just slammed me to the ground, and I rolled my hand. My hand is like rolled together and just crushed. I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay. I didn't think it was just.
It really sours your experience sometimes too. And
I'm like, oh,
you don't forget those kind of things, and
And I'm like, dude, breathe, man. Just, you clearly are giant. You see how little I am. Like, I don't know what you expect jiu-jitsu. So I try to teach that to the young students that come in, and just try to explain them. It's not about. I know everyone says it's about. You can't muscle. It's more technique and all that. But it's also like, just let's think. Mm-hmm. You know how much you weigh. If a guy is clearly small, there's no way that guy's going to out-muscle you, period. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to try to overcompensate. I'm like, see where the match goes, relax, and then feel it out. Don't just go fucking crazy right away.
It's hard to get people to understand that when they're brand new, because there's such a natural like fight instinct. If you've never grappled and someone's here trying to like grab your neck, you're like everything you have just to get this person off you. Yeah. But they don't get anything out of that. They get nothing out of that.
Strength is something that like where it's like, this guy is not stronger than me, but he's putting absolutely everything into this moment, and I'm like, Jesus, how strong is this guy? And then I'm like, oh well, he just desperate.
Like, that's the first time you compete. And you're like, oh, I really like. People who don't want to get tapped, I'm gonna have to really get after it to tap.
Right, and
them,
that's way more likely to injure them because they're struggling and training so hard.
I just did I was doing a private lesson with a friend who's brand new to it. Very nice guy, never compete. He's never done like wrestling or anything like that. And, he's actually like a band teacher. Okay. So you remember him? Yeah. And he said a statement that like is just kind of stuck in my brain, talking about, when he first started rolling, every time he'd roll with someone who's like a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, he was naturally maybe felt the most fear, but then it was the most gentle, like easy round, or like not easy, obviously, but like the most controlled round. Yeah. And then every time he'd roll with someone he's started with, right, another white belt, he's like feared for his life. He's like, oh, I don't know if this is for me. Right. So I just find that interesting that the more we learn, the more gentle and right. That's jiu-jitsu, isn't it?
I mean that's a part of learning how to control your opponent, but also learning how to control yourself.
Right. Which kind of falls onto the teachers too. Like how do you convey that to people when they're first learning jiu-jitsu? How to get them into that kind of mindset of learning more instead of just that strength element. And
the ones that I have the most trouble with it is like, and obviously not going to name names, but like at probably every one of the gyms that I've taught at, I will inevitably get somebody who maybe they wrestled, maybe they're just a naturally gifted athlete or whatnot, but they also have a extra degree of aggression above and beyond what might be considered normal. Okay, and it's like I don't want to take that away, especially if the guy wants to be a competitor.
If he's a competitor,
yeah. But I need to find some way to mold that and shape that and chill the fuck out so that you have training partners left over, bro.
Yeah. So and you have to think. I mean, if you really want to teach someone something, and it could be anything, not just jiu-jitsu, but your attitude towards it, if you just apply with everything that you naturally have, right, and that maybe that's strength and speed and things like that, to be able to import knowledge into that person is harder. It's always going to be harder. It's like a shell. Right. So you're trying to crack their shell and put knowledge into them. Whereas if they just take away their natural abilities, like their speed, their strength, or their size, weight, right? Like you're saying, then you can start to put things into their brain and allow them to use it. Right. So like if nothing else, if you're there and you're trying to learn from someone new, right, take that away so that you can kind of absorb. And like that's something that I would love to have everyone who's new to jiu-jitsu try to understand sooner than later.
Right.
Because otherwise you're just spinning wheels doing this, using your same attributes instead of actually absorbing anything new.
Right. Yeah. I always tell my guys, like, listen, I'm small, fast, relatively flexible. Okay. No one's ever going to yell at me in jiu-jitsu for being like too flexible. Yeah. No. Like no one's like, oh, you're too bendy. Stop. Every once in a while, you'll see somebody like concerned that you're not doing like a technical escape because you like wiggle out in a weird way or something like that. And rarely have I ever heard somebody be like, stop being so smooth and fast. Like just could you just be slower in all of your movements, please? But for sure, like the big guy is always going to get not yelled at, but always going to be chided. Is like stop relying on strength. And I tell people like you can't like. It's not that I don't want you to use your strength. It's not that I don't want you to use your attributes. Like I'm going to use mine, okay? But I need you to not rely on it. Like,
I can try to be empathetic towards it because I'm not a big guy, so I can't. Yeah. But I'm trying. I try to imagine that it's like, man, I don't know anything. And you're telling me not to use the only thing that might be able to stop this guy who's been doing this for way longer, right? But at the same time, it's, just it gets in the way of your actual learning, right? And there are things to learn.
For sure, for sure. God, what does it feel like being in the room and being just like an absolute giant right now?
A giant, yeah.
Yeah, you're the biggest guy
I'm
here.
a big boy at 150 pounds compared to all these guys.
That makes us feel really small.
I know. I'm trying to get Joey Diehl versus Christian Woodmansey. I'm trying to get that deal.
That would be great.
That fight.
We're planning this for like a fight to win.
Yeah,
a
you have a
fight
way
to
to
win.
hook this up? Is that what you're saying?
No, I mean, I don't
just
have any way.
dreams.
This is because I know Christian, and now I know you, and I've seen you fight. I've seen Christian fight, and I just think that would be
I think we'd be fun, really fun.
Amazing. Either gi or no gi, it would be an amazing match.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because you guys are both we're all the same exact size.
He's a buddy of yours?
He's been on the pod. Yeah.
Okay. I think he just signed with Sucker Punch, which is my manager. Or my management for MMA stuff.
Nice.
So I think I just saw that. So congrats to him. Sucker Punch Entertainment is like our.
That's so cool. That motorcycle out there, that's a Sucker Punch Sally frame. I like that name.
We'll get a little sticker for you.
That's cool.
So,
But yeah, that'd
be
cool.
awesome.
Like, you guys a fight to win Chicago event would be nice, man.
That'd be really cool.
You two guys.
We should get a quintet style thing on Fight to Win
Yeah,
for Chicago, right?
That's the plan.
They should do
Wait, can they do that? Can
I
Fight to
don't
Win do
know
a
how-
quintet?
Well, okay, hold
Is it
on.
subversive?
But they don't have
Can do
to
whatever
call
he
it that.
wants.
They should just do a Fight to Win Chicago teams. You know, right?
What I love about the
cool.
teams is
Yeah.
it brings me back to like high school wrestling.
Yeah.
Of like having your team and like, you know, you
you're-
watch your match before with your partner, your teammates and like the weight classes.
So now we've brought this up. This is something of a hot topic. You know, like I train at 10th Planet. 10th Planet was super, super proud of the fact that they fielded an entire team in-house. Not everyone on the team trains together regularly, but they're all 10th Planet black belts.
No ringers, is
Yeah,
what you're saying.
no ringers.
Gotcha.
How do you guys feel about the way the other teams went about it? Because I'm of two minds on it, mind you. Like I think what 10th Planet did was cool. You know, that's neat and all, but at the same time, this is professional grappling leagues. There's certainly no rule saying that everyone has to come from the same team. And like Sakuraba started it off, you know, bring in top level guys.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts? Did you guys see Quintet? What are your
Yeah, I
thoughts on the
watched it.
basic
I
idea
watched
of
it.
it?
I like the whole thing. I see what you're saying. I think it's very hard for any other team to put together like a whole roster of 5 to 7 guys. You know, 10th Planet has that ability because there's like
There are a lot of us
140
now,
schools
yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
You know, but
There
like
didn't used to be.
yeah. But like Uriah Faber's team was really just it was Team Alpha Male because Uriah Faber was on the team. No one else from that team was. I
think one other guy
one other
trains
guy
at
might have
Alpha
been.
Male.
Yeah, but then like
I can't
I mean,
remember what's his
you know,
name, but yeah.
Gordon and Munch are from the other side of the country, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mr.
so
Levy.
I mean, yeah, but I think maybe
And they
if you
just
just
wanted the best grapplers at the event. So like
Yeah.
I'm sure that was part of the incentive.
So what's the plan? Like, I already came up with my dream team from when we were doing this on a podcast earlier. I said I'd have myself, of course.
Obviously, yeah.
Four of
filling,
me.
filling in the position of Uriah Faber.
Yes, it would be myself. It'd be Gordon Ryan. It'd be
Okay.
Gary Tonin.
So we're
It'd
going with
be-
all your best friends locally.
Craig Jones, and then of course Felipe Pena, because Felipe Pena obviously beats all of them.
Wow.
So then
Sad.
that would be because I can't have Felipe on the other side.
Right. That's actually the main reason to get Felipe because you don't want Felipe to take out Gordon.
Exactly.
That's
Right.
your number one concern there.
Yeah.
Off mic, I just asked Kyle who was that.
That's okay. You could have asked that on mic.
Felipe, yeah, you could totally ask Felipe. Felipe Pena beat Tonin and beat Gordon Ryan twice.
Yeah, like I'm starting to follow the grappling scene more because there is like, you know, it's a whole world of like entertaining
Yeah.
Man,
drama and
it's
stories.
certainly
personalities.
easier now.
Yeah.
It used to be pretty hard to keep up with
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. There was no
Speaking
knowledge of it. Right?
Weird things happening. And it kind of bugs me because I don't know where this is coming from. I saw like a post. I think it was Instagram. Someone posted something that said like I think it was Leg Locker. Fuck the IBJJF rash guard. Did you see this?
Yeah. This is a thing that's going around.
What is up with that? I don't
Fill me in.
understand.
Fill me in.
Yeah. So I
is
basically
this?
you could like sign up.
I
and you
never.
could-
This is all my years of doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Never once done IBJJF.
Me either.
Not
Depending
once.
on who you ask, you are either not really doing
And it's not by
jiu-jitsu
real,
or
like,
you're not
choice.
missing anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's
It
really
wasn't a
very much
conscious
between there.
decision. It just never was on my kind of radar.
Yeah. So the IBJJF events, I like them. I think they're run very well. And me personally, I can't understand why anyone would say fuck the IBJJF. It doesn't make sense because they're the biggest governing body in jiu-jitsu currently, and they're
Go ahead,
I mean,
go ahead.
and they're basically making jiu-jitsu giant. I mean, the events that they put on. And all
you
the
pay-
cities,
it's a tournament, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
it's
tournament.
not-
but
not
we're-
like any-
how they're promoting jiu-jitsu and just getting the word out for jiu-jitsu is doing so much for the community.
Okay.
Now, you might not agree with all the rule sets and all this other fun stuff, but for the most part, I would never say fuck the IBJJF. That just seems like a little immature.
Okay, so first of all, cards on the table for those that don't know. I compete in the IBJJF as well as other organizations still.
Yeah.
I agree with Zito that they are some of the best run tournaments I've personally ever been to, and that is one of the big appeals of it. It's a smooth running operation. The rules are adhered to relatively well, despite a lot of bits of controversy here and there. And generally speaking, even though I don't agree with all the rules, I think it's a good rule set. So let's throw that out there. That said, what spawned all of that fuck the IBJJF stuff is they are a for-profit company acting as if they're a governing body that's in control of other people's belt ranks and promotions. Okay. And now, as opposed to before, in addition to you paying your tournament entry fees, it is now expected that everyone that's going to compete at an IBJJF has to be a paying yearly member of the IBJJF.
Yeah.
So, and we, like, anyone that was paying attention knew this was coming eventually. It did come a little bit faster than I thought it would, because previously it was only black belts that had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Actually, if I remember correctly, somebody who's been in the IBJJF scene longer than I have can correct me, but I believe when it started, it wasn't even black belts needed to pay to have a membership to compete. I believe it was you had to pay to register your school initially, and that was above and beyond your registration fee. So if you wanted your team to be able to represent you and earn team points and whatnot, you had to pay a certain fee. And then it became, I believe, black belts needed to pay a registration fee yearly, be members of the IBJJF. You have to be certified with them. Your credentials have to be signed off by another accredited black belt. So in my instance, Hickson has to sign off on my instructor certificate. They have to sign off on mine, so on and so forth. Then they added it to brown belts. Just last year, purple belts, and starting soon, blue belts. So now, the biggest, best tournament in the country. Well, they're raking in the dough.
Yeah, that's
okay. That's a
what
big
I'm picking up on
factor. Again, we have to remember this is a for-profit company, not a actual like national governing body. Okay, which if you've done sports like wrestling or judo, you understand that these are two very different things. Okay, but yeah,
what does that mean when you say it's a for? What's the difference? If it's for why you don't want it to be for profit, is it a bad thing?
It is a bad thing.
Why is that bad?
Okay,
is the NFL a bad thing? I don't understand.
There's arguments for and against that.
And I'm a businessman, so I don't see any problem with anybody trying to make money in America.
They're making money off of you.
That's fine. I'm supporting them because I want jiu-jitsu to grow. And the only way it can grow is if someone takes the lead and actually does something with jiu-jitsu.
But if you're trying to make a professional sport where people are going to be paid. Okay, which is what a large number of people want.
Right.
Okay, you can't run it as an amateur sport with a for-profit governing body that benefits from basically screwing the athletes.
How are they screwing the athletes?
Well, just any changes, any. Again, like we don't. The UFC is not the governing body for the events. Like the athletic commission.
Right.
Is the governing body for the event. Right. We don't want those two things, generally speaking, mixed together because it becomes a conflict of interest when somebody's job is both to promote and regulate the same activity. Does that make sense with that reference?
Yeah, but I don't.
Well, that's the situation we currently have, and it's more okay because this is still very much in the amateur grassroots stages.
That's the difference.
Right.
It's not a professional.
Right.
They're not paying people.
Well, some people are getting paid, like at the highest levels, mind you.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I mean, they do pro events.
They do pro events, right?
They'll do.
But your average, your average world championship is not a paid pro event for everyone that competes.
But also, you as an amateur, I'll put that in quotes, can compete against professionals. Like if you were a black, you can go against Kyotera. You know what I mean? I mean, that's I can't go into any football league and go against or whoever basketball and play against Michael Jordan.
The best in the world are there as well.
Right, the best in the world are there, and me as just some guy who goes a 9-to-5 job and does jiu-jitsu on the side can compete against guys who are at that world class level, and no other sport can compare to that. Like you can't play a game against LeBron James; it's never going to happen.
I mean, there's a chance he might pick me,
Yeah,
like for sure. He's out doing a game of pickup, and he sees she's like all 5'3" of me. Right. He's like, dude, I need that guy on my team.
Right, but for sure, you have the opportunity of going against the best of the best in the world, and at an IBJJF
but you pay
tournament.
For it. You pay
for sure. You pay a registration fee, and you pay to be a member.
Do they invite like champions and stuff like that for free? Like, so let's say you're saying like Kyotera, does he pay an entry fee?
Christian Woodmansey said something about like once you win a world championship, they refund like some of your fees or something for that year.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know that you know once you get your black belt and to register as a black belt, there is a $500 yearly fee you have to pay.
So I'm not into that.
You know,
Sorry.
for that
Yeah.
to keep competing at that.
Let's put it this way. So my coaches
might even be more than that.
My coaches are.
We've got Mark Vivas coming in to shed light on a lot of this stuff.
Mark will, next time we talk to Mark,
I'm
he'll
not an
probably,
expert on any of this.
And to be fair, like I'm not either. I just understand a little bit of both sides of the argument.
Yeah, but I don't see any so I can appreciate the fact that they want to charge for purple and they want to now charge for blue.
Right, and
I can
like I
appreciate
said,
it just
I saw that
because of
coming.
how well the tournament. It's not like they're being skimpy on it. It's not like you're going to the tournament. Okay, I'll give them one.
Yeah, if the
downside.
tournament was terrible
If
and
the
you're
tournament
paying
was
all this money,
right? I'm paying
and
all
there's
this money.
tournaments like that.
And
There's
there is. Like
definitely-
if you go to a Naga and you're like, okay, I'm going to be here till 10 o'clock at night waiting to
and that's
compete.
my experience with grappling tournaments.
Right.
I think every grappling tournament.
No,
is like
they're
that.
not-
So the IBJJF, they tell
I
you,
don't
even
hey,
know that.
you're going on at 2:30. You're going on at 2:30.
That's why I just rather fight.
It's
It makes
amazing.
martial arts, you know.
Right. But I can see if the IBJJF wasn't doing their mats were shit. Everything was bad. Everything is fucking high quality.
So you're saying they're investing some money into
They're
what
putting
doing.
money back
Yeah.
into the sport, into the advertising, into all that stuff. They're not being cheap. They're not taking your money and be like, all right, see you later. And we using the same old mats or doing something that wouldn't. So I can appreciate that. Now people, I don't know. I think just people don't like to see other people succeed. I think
Or
people
make a
want
lot of money.
Or make a lot of
Yeah.
money. Like, oh, you're just
Like
trying to
at
make
what
money.
level
Yeah, what level?
is-
It's like, oh, okay, well, you could be a Naga and we'll just complain about terms, but it's cheap, so whatever. But once you start, building up that huge,
Well, Naga isn't that
scene-
cheap anymore. Let's point that out.
It's not. No,
Yeah.
I'm just giving an example. But I don't know. I just think that fuck the IBJJF. It seems a little childish to me. It's like, come on, guys, let's grow up, man. We all like jujitsu. We all want to promote jujitsu. Every guy who does jujitsu, you talk to them, that's all they want to talk about is jujitsu. Yeah. So why would you say fuck the biggest fucking, you know what I mean? Biggest promoters of jujitsu?
The real question is, listen, these guys are just trying to make some money on their "fuck the IBJJF" t-shirts.
That's what it is.
You're trashing their
popular opinion.
You're
I think
you're
it's
just
more of
trashing
a
their whole
leg
style
locker
here.
against the tournament.
Well, not just him, though.
Seriously, I think that's more the vibe. Is just that they don't let you do the new age moves,
Yeah,
and
right.
so then like fuck them, that's not cool.
Yeah, if you don't agree with the rule set and you don't like them,
Right.
And I don't fully agree with the rule set, but it's just something I've chosen to fight on.
It's that narrative that so I'm obviously older than you guys, but the narrative that I see when I look at like my nephews and nieces and I see this stuff, I'm so tired of that narrative, like us against that, fuck that guy. I just can't we all just get along, man? What's the big deal? Like, why do we have to always put other people, other groups down? I just live and let live, man. Let's just.
It's a social media thing too.
It's so weird. It's just like, okay, fuck the IBJJF. All right, yeah, it's fucking funny. It's so ridiculous. I'm just so past all that bullshit that it's just, for me, it seems so
Past all that
childish.
bullshit, yet riled up enough to bring it up on a podcast.
Well, I bring it up because we have a lot of listeners, and I just like to hear and get the narrative out there. I mean,
Get it? You
what's the
want
point?
the kids to get off your lawn?
No, I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all. Like,
Well,
fuck
to me,
playing
it's just
along.
it's so cool to think of that the fact that I can even make any kind of money, like with Fight to Win, to
Yeah.
get paid to do grappling to
Fucking
me is
awesome.
wild.
To not be punched in the face?
Man,
Yeah.
I'll do that every weekend. That's amazing. Like to get paid to do that. So like I'm willing to like shell out $80, $100 to go have fun at a tournament.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the idea of paying a monthly thing for that sounds pretty outrageous to me.
It's a yearly.
Yearly, okay.
It's $40 a year.
Oh, that's not bad. I thought you said 500
If you're a black belt.
Yeah, it goes up in price as you go up.
As you go up in ranks. Yeah, exactly. So
I
you're a
don't
black
know.
belt. So you'd have to pay. I
That's
don't
a lot of money.
I don't know if
Yeah.
it's 500. I think the initial like sign up might be $500 or $1,000 to get registered with
But some people,
IBJJF.
that's their
Why don't you
whole
tell them
life,
how much
right?
it is per stripe?
I don't know.
Per strike.
I didn't even know there was.
It goes up per stripe.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah. I mean, they're,
But again, it's
like
not-
you said,
it's not-
they're good businessmen. They know
they're
how to
good
make
business
money,
and they know how to make money and
people are going to do it, right?
Yeah.
I think some people that's their whole life, right? Is
their
just
whole
doing
life, man.
IBJJF
That's it.
tournaments.
Yeah, no, for
right?
sure.
they're
And
invested in it.
Yeah, like
It's a
that's
thing.
their what they train for.
But
They're
again,
doing it. Yeah. To me,
like-
it's an extra. It's grappling terms are extra credit stuff.
Right.
That's
right. Bonus
But
content.
You know what I mean?
like
Yeah.
you come from a school like Jeff's school is obviously more towards the MMA side, right?
Yeah, I mean that's my upbringing of jiu-jitsu
Yeah.
is through the lens of mixed
Right.
martial arts.
So
and
there are
fighting.
some schools out there, like my school, for instance. Andre Maneko, he has been an IBJJF referee for 10 plus years,
Right on.
and he's invested in that sport, jiu-jitsu, and he prides his school at teaching that sport, jiu-jitsu. So
Right.
if you want your kid to be a world champion, I'll put that in quotes.
That's where you'd want to go.
That's where you're
you
going
wouldn't
to go.
come. Yeah, I that's not how I
Yeah,
teach.
exactly.
I teach through like the lens of self-defense.
Exactly.
And,
right. Yeah.
Martial
Whereas
Yeah,
other schools
it's
are
just
like, hey,
it's a different sport. I mean,
you
completely.
want your kid to be a world champion,
And it's cool.
and then that's
what I
where they're going to
mean?
go.
Yeah.
So it's giving people an opportunity. And if that's not what you want your kid to be, you want to be MMA or you want them to do self-defense, then
Yeah.
you take them to a current school.
I think that's what's pretty cool about jiu-jitsu is that you do have, I mean, for to say this broad term of jiu-jitsu or
Right.
grappling even, you have so many different avenues.
Oh, yeah.
And like I'm not the type of person who's like, I don't do that, I don't like it.
Right.
You know what I mean? But the reality
Wrong,
is
bad
this,
fun.
Yeah. But the reality is like, yeah, it's just that's not interesting to me as much as what I do. You know what I mean? When it comes to like what got me into jiu-jitsu, like I said, was MMA. Like that was what made me want to train jiu-jitsu,
Right.
but also because I am small and I don't want to get hurt. Like if someone was to really try to hurt me, and I mean that like from a context, someone try to punch me in the face.
Right.
And I always, being a small person, maybe you guys can relate, is you don't know what would happen if someone's like, there's that fear element, especially when you're young. Like if you guys can bring yourself back to being like in
long
sixth
time ago.
grade, 7th grade, and you're like, man, what would happen if someone punched me in the face? I know it's, and wrestling is a sport. And I always thought of wrestling like, okay, this could be something that helps me, right? In a fight.
No, I 100% the same exact
It's
feeling.
like, man, I'll just double leg this person, and that was my mindset for so long, But then you watch something like the UFC and like,
And
the
somebody-
old school UFC, and you think of these styles versus styles, and jiu-jitsu had this like,
Better plan.
it had this better play, a better method, or it had a better route to a fight finish, and that's what drew me to it. It wasn't grappling versus grappling; it was someone trying to hurt me and me using grappling against it.
Right.
But yeah, so many avenues.
It's funny because I've only kind of recently started doing this on the regular. I've definitely trained at between catch wrestling, where oftentimes we would throw a little bit of boxing in, and there'd be some rough house play, and drop an elbow on a guy's face and whatnot. It was a pretty
Is it
rough
sambo?
style.
Like
Sambo's kind of rough,
guy,
but
right?
I never did combat sambo.
Okay.
So like combat sambo is where we're so. Probably hard to explain to people that aren't familiar, but in sambo we wear a jacket and shorts, and it is superficially similar to jiu-jitsu or judo in how it's used. There's leg locks instead of chokes, and there's a lot of points to be scored, similar to wrestling, based on quality of throw and so forth. You can actually win instantly in a sambo match with a good enough throw. It's
Like
called
judo.
a total victory throw. It's actually... It's a higher, more precise scoring criteria than judo. Ippon in judo is instant victory, but there's, and not saying it's an easier sport, but there's more ways that I can throw a guy that will get that total score in judo than there are in sambo. In sambo, I have to put him flat on his back, and I have to remain standing. In judo, I could get that score with a sacrifice throw or some kind of roll through.
Gotcha.
So yeah, like again, not saying the sport's easier per se, just that like the criteria that would be at best a 4-point throw in sambo, which is still considerable. That's like you're halfway to victory basically. If you have an 8-point lead, you win. But yeah, total victory where it's just like no, you instantly win it. Walk off, you're done.
I have to say, like, there's so many, and someone who does like sports like this, if you do that, to remember all the different little subtle details of rules, it's hard for me. Even when I do a grappling tournament, I'm like,
it gets
"Oh,
trickier.
What's the rules of this one?
Like for me,
I've been disqualified.
we were there. We saw. For the record, no one in that particular match, no one in the audience had any clue why you were disqualified. Like we're all like, "What the fuck?"
We still consider it a beautiful submission. That's all I saw.
I didn't pay attention to the rules. That's my bad.
Regardless, anyhow, so combat sambo is kind of like sambo MMA mixed together. You wear shin pads, you wear
cool.
MMA gloves, and you wear headgear, and you're allowed to strike. You can do kicks, punches, chokes are added back into the element. There's some groundwork. It's still contested in the sambo mat, which is similar to a freestyle or Greco wrestling mat. Okay, but as an and by the way, we wear soft shoes in sambo. They have no grip on them. It's like all cowhide, all leather. So they slide a little bit easier.
What's the point of that? Why do they have shoes?
Well, because it protects your toes so you don't break
For
them on the
kicks.
mat by accident.
Oh,
And
You too.
yeah. Just a mutual look here between me and Kyle. But so it protects your feet, and by the downside of the grip, and depends on who you ask. Some people are like, oh, well, it's so that you get thrown easier because you can't grip the mat the same way as you can with wrestling shoes. But at the same time, it's also sort of a safety thing because since your feet slide naturally the way they would, with your bare feet kind of, foot sweeps are very dangerous when you're in wrestling shoes because your foot will stick and the rest of your body will go over.
Knee.
And your knee is, or sometimes your
Something's
hip.
gotta give.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something's going to give, and it's usually a joint. So like that kind of promotes and aids in safety for foot sweeps and just general foot protection. Like once you start wearing Sambo shoes, like you kind of wonder why you're not wearing them all the time because you still have a very good natural feel for the mat, unlike a wrestling shoe where it kind of blocks you from the mat somewhat, even with that thin sole. So you can still kind of like grip and feel it move under you. Your foot still bends in all the ways it would if you were barefoot. But it offers that extra layer of protection. You're never going to rub your foot on the mat and taking a shot. You're not going to stub a toe.
No.
Yeah. It's actually pretty nice. But regardless, sorry, got off on a tangent there. So in combat Sambo, you have all this striking, which includes headbutts because you're wearing headgear, so they let you headbutt. But when you knock a dude over with a strike, it scores the same way as if you had thrown him. So if you knock a dude flat on his back, just like he falls over practically dead, whether he's unconscious or not, mind you, okay, and you stay standing, that's it, total victory. You just punched the guy into the ground.
So it's a TKO.
Yeah, it's like, exactly. But if he like falls over and he just lands on his butt, that's only going to get like 2 points. So
Man, the headbutts sound exciting to me.
Isn't it though? Like I almost everyone I know that's done it.
I saw some videos, after Khabib's fight. Like, everyone was watching Khabib's kind of like his old fights and stuff, and watching some old school headbutts and a Sambo match.
And we've still got the jacket on, so like a lot of the stuff you do, it's pretty cool. Now I haven't trained extensively in that stuff. I've messed around here or there, done a couple of seminars, sparred around with it, and it's super cool and whatnot. But I've recently with a former guest of the show, Dennis Dombrow. You guys have all known Matt, grappled with. So Dennis he runs a 3D martial arts in Hanover Park, and Monday nights I go over there to do to get in rounds of wall wrestling. Because there's a thing that I didn't know I needed in my life until I started doing it seriously.
It's a skill.
It's
different than people think.
It's a super valuable,
different than just a wrestling out in the open.
100%. Like all of a sudden you're like, I can't sprawl because my ass is up against the wall. So how do I? Oh, now I gotta position my feet differently. Yeah. But like that was one of those things where we're at a weird intersection here because I have for sure taken various classes in jiu-jitsu or whatnot where they teach self-defense, and it's like, oh, somebody has you pressed up against a wall. Here's how you escape. And that shit don't work against a trained MMA fighter who's looking to just smash you against the wall. There's so many
frame and
so many different. I wish everyone could have seen what you just did with your hands.
Twist the wrist.
Like so many differences between. How you fight with your back against the wall, how you take a guy off the wall and put him on the ground, how you use the wall to stand up.
Everyone who watches or hardcore MMA fans should feel that or see that a little bit.
I think it's underappreciated there. Yeah.
Most people don't realize how difficult that is and how exhausting it is too. A different level. Like even if you're a good wrestler, but being grinded up against a cage. It's one of the worst. Speaking from my experience, some of my least favorite memories in fights have been my head against a cage, being grinded up, or even just my back against the cage and just being grinded against the wall and being like, oh, I can't move.
Right. This is terrible.
Some of the worst nightmares.
Yeah. I'm not going to call him out or give him excessive praise. No. But yeah, for me, not that I'm the greatest wrestler in the world or anything, but I know roughly the level of my wrestling ability, and I for sure thought I was going to go in there and we do wall wrestling, and I'd be like, I adapt. Show me a couple of things. I'm sure I'll adapt to this. No. Let's relearn an entire skill set here.
If you've never done it, it's definitely different.
Massive appreciation for that. But above and beyond that, also, we throw on the gloves and we're not going 100% necessarily. But, adding the wall adding the strikes
yeah.
really, really makes you appreciate what portions of your jiu-jitsu you can actually use in a fight.
Yeah.
You know, in a real altercation or the cage, whatever it may be.
Whether it's sport MMA, which is
Yeah.
a sport too, or
for
just
sure.
a fight, right?
Yeah. So yeah, like, you know, and I'm not to bag on it, but like, I'm not that like Berimbolo guy. You know, I'm not a spider guard player where like, oh, I have to have my special grips to do my favorite sweeps or anything like that.
Right.
Like I've got a pretty good solid no-gi game. I have a background in wrestling. And yeah, like, so when you're talking about like your perspective on jiu-jitsu coming from an MMA standpoint, like now I feel like even with just a little bit of time in, I get that more than I would have before.
Right.
Like I really, really, I didn't appreciate how much different certain things would be.
Yeah. It's hard to it's hard to put in, like if you've never done it, it's hard to explain to someone.
And like I said, I had done some stuff, but it was fairly controlled. Like, you know, we're gonna put a guy on top of you, and he's gonna be a mount, and he's gonna rain some punches down in a somewhat predictable pattern,
Right.
and you're gonna block those. Yeah, no, like it's totally different when the guys.
The chaos of it is
absolutely.
Yeah, every once in a while we'll do that, and we're going to try doing some more with Kyle. Is like, you know, we'll just throw on some gloves, and because Kyle, if you don't know, Kyle's got great leg locks, and he'll be going for stuff. Yeah, he'll be going for stuff. And it's just that's the difference. Is like just having the gloves on just changes the whole dynamic of the
So they have to
grappling
tell
match.
me, like, I don't know if you want to do that. I'm gonna punch you. All right, man.
So he's like, I'm good. He's like, I'm fine. Like, it just changes, you know, the grappling match. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I and like I said, I've got a real appreciation for it. Didn't know how much that stuff was missing from my life until I started doing it daily. Well, not daily, weekly. So yeah,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's a beauty, like there's definitely this beautiful aspect to, like you're saying, Berimbolos and movements that maybe aren't fight related even,
Right,
or like
right.
street fight.
I mean,
or
there's for sure
related.
a guy who's pulled off a Berimbolo in
sure.
MMA.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know I've seen
Everything
a video of it.
can possibly work,
maybe
no
work,
matter
yeah.
what it is. Like we've seen Fabricio Verdum run across cage, flying kick to
He's
the
done it
face.
twice,
you know?
yeah.
Flying
So, like,
sidekick.
anything could possibly happen, but it's like there's a beauty to like sport jiu-jitsu movements that some of them I look at, I'm like, man, how did they, you know, certain things with the gi too that like it's beautiful art, you know, like anything else. And it's just where my brain has always been on what's going to happen when the person tries to punch me in the face, what's going to happen when, you know, someone bigger is trying to hold me down, more in the self-defense kind of element, you know. I think everyone has their little specialties. It's kind of like this world of grappling, and it all dissects into like the branches of grappling, you know, like a tree.
Right.
So your game, are you more of an open guard game?
No, I'm more of a traditional like closed guard.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I do everything. Like I try to be a little bit more well-rounded and be like not pigeon. Like I'm gonna just have the closed guard and things like that.
Well, your match with PJ at Fight to Win was fantastic.
Awesome.
It was
Thank
an
you.
awesome match.
Cool.
That was really slick.
Yeah, I didn't know. You know, I knew he was really, and he is. He's really talented, really good. And he's active in grappling, right?
Yeah.
More active than I am, like when it comes to doing competition stuff, and so it's fun to see in that world like how I do. You know, I was excited to.
I think he actually just had his first IBJJF at black belt at the last Chicago Open. May have been the one prior, but yeah, like he's been getting after it. You know, he's a young go getter.
Yeah, just going into all the tournaments and
Yeah.
stuff, which is cool. I look up to that. That's cool.
Was it that
I never got to do
you
that.
came out with your shirt off?
No, I
he
didn't.
did.
Oh, that's
so
right.
This is funny.
He came
this
out
is
with
my
his
favorite
shirt
part
off.
of the whole match.
That's right.
let's hear this.
He came out without shirt off. That's right.
Like I come, you know, like I number one, I've already been disqualified once from Fight to Win, so I didn't want to do anything wrong. And no one said you could go without your shirt, so I made sure I had my rash guard. So I put my rash guard on. I walk out, you know, all good to go. And he comes out and he has his rash guard. I was like, okay, good. We're both, you know. Then he rips his shirt off, and I was like, oh, we could take your shirt off. So I was like, if he's gonna be shirtless, I'm taking my shirt off. I took my shirt off, like I threw it at Kyle. I was like, hold this.
And I've never seen a bigger smile in Joey's
I was like,
face.
oh, it's great. Yeah, right. Because that's what I'm used to, you know, from fighting. You know, but
Makes sense. Now, I know you're young.
Thanks, man.
You have so many fucking tattoos. When the fuck do you have time to get all that tat
a
work,
lot to
man?
do, right?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I haven't gotten a tattoo in over a year and a half. It's been a while. I haven't gotten a new
I thought
tattoo
you were going
in
to be
while.
like a week.
Yeah, I know.
I went through a phase where
Yeah, man.
every week I would
Holy
go get
shit,
some work
dude.
done.
I mean, they're awesome.
Shout
It
out
looks
to
really
Electric
cool.
Tattoo Parlor.
Oh, yeah?
Your boy?
Yeah.
Where are they
Tom
located?
Begley, he actually trains with us.
Oh, does he?
Yeah,
Nice.
he's the owner of the tattoo
They
parlor.
look great, man. It looks
Thanks,
really
man.
cool,
Yeah,
man.
they're all great artists there. So yeah, it's definitely an addiction.
Yeah.
But I've kind of slowed down. Yeah, like my back. I got my back done and my entire back's done in like 4 sessions. I got pretty much all of it done. Wow. Like 4 9-hour sessions every other week. I would go and get some work done. I took a little time in between, but for the most part, I got that done. Like blasted it out.
Wow.
And I feel like now, I don't know if you guys have some tattoos. I'm like not as tough. None.
No.
Yeah. I don't think you have any.
side of the
Oh
table.
man.
That's weird how that worked out.
Stay over there. Just kidding. I feel like now I'm not as tough anymore. So I went and got like some little stuff done. I'm like, man, how did I wait? Like, how did I hold out for 9 hours before? I think I've used up all of my time. So now I'm just gonna like barely get a little work done every once in a while. I still have some ideas I need to finish up.
Yeah.
My goal was always to finish all my tattoos by 30.
Okay.
Because once you're 30 and you're older, you're definitely going to second guess yourself and not
Sure.
do some things that you might when you're younger, which is usually people's other logic on not getting them.
Right.
I say like,
I just got this tattoo 6 months ago.
Oh yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
so
And that's your first.
my first tattoo.
Okay,
Yeah,
right on.
first and only so far.
First and only. Yeah.
Oh, you went
So
bold for your
far.
first one. That's
First
bold.
one I go
down
all
to the
in, man.
wrist.
I go
Yeah.
down to the wrist. Yeah.
Well, I
went
mean,
all in.
he's not going to fire himself for having inappropriate
own
tattoos.
gesture.
Yeah, I mean,
You wear sleeves in your own office.
Yeah. And what's so funny is that like clients.
The boss is such an ass. Yeah. Wear the sleeve.
I've seen clients. This is how I go with t-shirt and jeans to my clients. For the most part, and none of them has even. I don't think anyone has even commented. They didn't even notice. Like even my close friends are like. Wait, did you always have that, or is that new? I'm like,
It's
are you
weird how
serious?
it's not even like really thought about. I feel
No.
like, and maybe I'm just used to people looking at me with tattoos, but like no one's like, whoa, you have a lot of tattoos
Right.
anymore. Like no one says that. I
Right.
feel like tattoos are so commonplace now.
Very common. Everyone has them. Like
Very-
restaurants.
Kind of makes me
everyone's just
feel
normal.
like oh,
Less
it's not-
special?
Yeah, it's not. I want to be special.
Yeah, now you have got
Everyone's
to be on that side too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more
To be
original to not
special.
have tattoos.
Right.
Yeah.
What a weird
exactly.
situation we've come to.
Yes.
Yeah, now, without betraying my personal proclivities, I've always like had a thing for tattoos. Like, and I see a girl with nice tattoos, and that used
My
to be
favorite.
super, super rare. Like you had to go to just the right places,
Yeah.
or know the right people, or subscribe to the right online. To really see that kind of stuff. And now,
Now
it's,
they're
it's
everywhere, yeah.
it's super common. And
For
I'm like,
sure.
I'm torn, like, because for the most
It makes
part,
it less special, and I think that's kind
for
of
the most
what
part,
was
I'm happy.
attractive about it.
Yeah.
I guess.
Like,
Even
I just
for
like
myself.
seeing nice ink on people. Let's be real honest here. See a person who's in good shape with nice ink. That's just very complimentary.
Right.
Attributes there. But yeah, like the proliferation of it has made it
Less special, yeah.
Well, not less special per se, but I'm less likely to actually notice it. Like I have a picture probably on my phone from several phones ago. And this is just how much it's changed in fairly recent time. But like, I don't know, it was probably 6-ish years ago. And our waitress at I want to say it was a Tilted Kilt or something like that, had just like this beautifully intricate back piece. And I was like, oh man, that's super awesome. Could I take a picture of that? Like, not in a creepy way. I'm just like, that's really cool. And she's like, yeah, sure. Awesome. And now I think about it, and I'm like, I couldn't imagine saying that. I'd be taking
Right.
pictures of people like everywhere I go now.
especially in grappling world, right?
Yeah, especially with what we do.
Well, that's a good thing about tattoos, at least for the most part. Not everyone, but they're original, right? So,
Right.
like, I've never seen that exact tattoo on anyone. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
hopefully, for the most part,
Right. I mean,
kind of original.
I guess I guess you go to J Dragon and you're just like, yeah, give me something off of book
I'll
4.
take that.
Yeah.
That's actually my brother. So to talk about my brother, we started grappling together. He was actually the reason I started wrestling too. So he's like 8 years older than me. Got me into wrestling when I was 5, and he was whatever. I don't do math, right?
Right. Don't worry about it.
And
This is a math-free zone.
yeah.
You're safe here.
but we would go like my first tattoo. Maybe it was my second tattoo. He came in, and we got like matching tattoos. And we got like a Chinese symbol that says
That's
like
cool.
family, and then we went again another time. And he's like, "Oh, you just pick something. I'll go get it." You know what I mean? Like whatever.
Right.
So he found. He's like, but he only if he can place it wherever he wants. Right.
Right. Okay.
So I picked out a Winnie the Pooh tattoo, and the obvious spot would be on his ass, right? So that's my favorite tattoo that I know that someone has that I don't see very often. That was a good memory. Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh. They're coming out with the Winnie the Pooh movie, by the way.
Yeah.
I saw that.
Live
I was
action, man.
That's ridiculous.
I'm a fan.
Or it could
I'll
be
go see it.
fantastic.
It could be fantastic.
Yeah.
I
It's
just
gonna
was
be
watching.
good.
I'm like, is this really Winnie the Pooh? Like,
I'm gonna give
Nothing's
that,
sacred anymore.
I'm gonna give that one a chance though. Like it's got an interesting cast.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'll have to take my brother to it. He'll love it.
Now you were disabled because I know from your Facebook page that you're like a yogi or something like that. Like you're like. Because
Yeah,
I just saw you put your leg up. I'm like, how the fuck did he just stick his leg straight up like that? That was fucking
that's
crazy. I'm
yoga.
like, can I do that? No, I can't do that.
Yeah, you'll notice when I was talking, I prefaced my words with kind of flexible.
Right,
Because
yeah.
I've got Joey sitting over here.
So what's up with that, man? I mean,
Yeah, yoga came very naturally. It wasn't something that I was like, I want to become like jujitsu was forced. Like as in, I really wanted to do jujitsu, and and it's kind of a weird like when you label yourself. You know what I mean? Like I do jujitsu. Like I know it's kind of an odd little part of your.
I mean, probably not with our
ego,
listening
right?
audience. Like everyone probably is just like, no,
like,
that's
that's
normal,
what
right?
I do. Yeah. I'm a grappler, right? But like that was something I suck. I seeked it out, and then with yoga, it just kind of happened naturally. And I remember after fighting for so many years, I was like, I started training very young, and then I started fighting while I was still in high school. I had my first fight right out of high school and just started fighting like crazy. And my body was pretty rough. I was like at 20 years old, 21, like every morning in pain, waking up, my back was bad. Yeah. Like, and so many just little things, little injuries. And someone, I don't remember where, and there was a yoga studio really close to my house, like walking distance. And I was like, someone told me this is going to make me really flex. And I'm like the least flexible person. When I first started, like at 20 years old, couldn't touch my toes, like
really?
The classic, like, not flexible. I never stretched a day in my life. The only stretches I ever did was, like when you're in grade school. Yeah. You're like,
touch your toes.
Count to 10. Yeah. That's my only experience with stretching. And then I went to a yoga class, and my first yoga class, hated it. I was like, this is really weird. And it was like, just, to be honest, like a couple middle-aged women and myself. And, it was just like, not the experience I really want. So I was like, okay, I'm not really into that. I'm not going to go back to that. I didn't see the value in it. And then I went home and I started just doing some things on my own, and I started researching my own, and actually, do a little shout out to who kind of really inspired me in yoga world is Dylan Warner, who's an instructor. And I started following him online and just learning from him online. And that was what got me into it, what really kind of became a self-practice. And I think that's, for yoga, it's more about what I do on my own and how more than just the physical stuff, and we can get deep on that kind of stuff, but my self-practice is what keeps me kind of sane. Jiu-jitsu, of course, is part of that, like, self-practice. I know you guys can probably relate to that. Is that every time you come to the mat, it's like a wash of a lot of, like, thoughts and things like that. And yoga is my way of doing that as well. So I can do that at home. I can just roll out a mat, get on a mat, and start moving and breathing, right, which is the big part of it. And it's my way of kind of cleansing and relaxing my body, right, and my mind. So it became this kind of just natural thing. I never imagined I would be teaching yoga and things like that. And that just kind of happened naturally. And for me, it's as equal of part of my life as jiu-jitsu is. Which I'm surprised myself.
20 years old, you said?
Yeah, about 20, 21.
Wow.
And just practicing regularly and just, getting into that kind of world, right? And
so what has that done? Has it, obviously it's probably improved your jiu-jitsu because they
I
complement
think
each
so.
other, right?
Yeah, I think they go perfectly well together. And so this is what I would caveat and say is you can call it whatever you want. So like some people might not call it yoga, right? When someone says yoga, kind of even like jiu-jitsu, they start seeing things in their head or imagining things or preconceived ideas of what yoga is, and they see like lotuses and flowers and whatever, right? They start seeing what is told in their head. To me, it's beyond that. Just like jiu-jitsu is beyond that. It's like it goes really much deeper inside for myself. I just call it yoga because that's what I was kind of taught. But for me, it's a bigger practice than just this idea of yoga. Just like jiu-jitsu is way bigger for me than what people kind of. If you say jiu-jitsu, someone starts thinking about choking people or whatever it is that comes to mind, or MMA, jiu-jitsu, and UFC or whatever. it's bigger, hard to explain in that sense. But yoga for me it's the biggest part of my life. It's just as big as my grappling part of my life.
And then you teach it at Curran's, or you?
Yeah, I do. Kind of like a yoga for grapplers class, and mostly because then we have some people who come in who aren't training jiu-jitsu, but most of them are just grapplers, and they, I see the benefit that it gave me in terms of my physical body and flexibility, like you said, now I can lift my leg like this and most people can't, but also just the goal of staying on the mat. So if at the end of the day, if my goal is to be on the mat longer, if jiu-jitsu gives me so much joy and fulfillment in my life, if injuries are going to take it away from me really soon, I need to do something that's going to allow me to stay on the mat longer. And for me, yoga was that thing. And without that, I know I wouldn't still be grappling as much as I am, or even fighting, because I was just slowly falling apart, right?
Right.
So my goal, and the reason I started teaching anything, but teaching yoga and this idea is because I want to give that to someone. So I know, I teach jiu-jitsu classes. I see someone who's maybe middle-aged come in and maybe hasn't grappled their whole life, or maybe they even have, and their body, you can tell when someone comes in and whether they're going to last right away by how they roll and things like that. And I want to give everyone the longest ability or longest possible chance of staying on the mat and maybe discovering that thing that I love about grappling, right? And I think a lot of people, I've seen so many people come in 3 months, get hurt, gone, never see them again. And maybe that would have been something that would have been a big part of their life.
Right.
And I think yoga, for me, yoga could be that thing that helps keep them on the mat. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's kind of my biggest motivation with teaching. Yeah.
No. I mean, I've never tried yoga, and everyone keeps telling me that I need to do it. And I, right now I'm dealing with this rib injury, but and I'm doing physical therapy twice a week for that. But I think this is something that I'm probably going to have to incorporate in my daily, not daily, but
I'll help you however I can too. Just sharing kind of.
What's obviously I've never done it, so. Where do you start? Do you go to one class a week, or you start signing
everyone's
up?
Different, and that's the thing too. It's hard.
What can I expect? In terms of sorry.
Yeah.
In terms of so if let's just say I just don't want to be too sore to do jiu-jitsu. I'm doing yoga now, and I'm fucking burnt out, and I can't.
And that could definitely be a possibility.
That could be. So that's what I'm saying. Do you do for instance, okay, do one class a week? But is that going to get me the results I need, or how's that work?
Yeah. So, the problem is with that kind of question is I don't know what that class is. Mm-hmm. So it's just like any other gym that you might go to. Let's say you're going to a martial arts academy. Mm-hmm. I could say, just go to some academy and train jiu-jitsu. You'll be fine. But that academy is so different than this academy or that place.
Right.
I don't know, if you go to your local yoga studio and you're doing something that, I don't know what the practice might be. Right? And there are different styles and things like that, which are, it's hard to explain everything about it, but and that's so finding a good teacher, finding something that can actually be relatable, and that's kind of how I like to, I like to teach. That's to people that's relatable to. So that's why I love teaching grapplers yoga, and we actually have a workshop next weekend, which would be perfect for you if you're free on the 14th.
Okay,
it's not my own. It's actually one of my yoga teachers, Jim Bennett. He is a brown belt. I'm not sure under who. I should look that up. But he's a brown belt, and he owns Teja's Yoga, which is a studio in Chicago. Okay. Super talented.
I believe he's a Brazil 021.
There you go.
Belt.
Yeah,
or brown belt rather.
Yeah, brown belt.
Yeah.
But he's an amazing yoga teacher, and because he grapples and he's a wrestler, and it's so much more relatable. Him teaching it, I can relate to what he's saying and where it can kind of fall into my life, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the issue. But in general, you could practice. You generally don't. It's not like you're going to be so sore. It's different than say CrossFit or something where you want to add something to your practice for jiu-jitsu that starts to take away from your actual physical ability or make you more tired or sore. Right. Yoga can be very nourishing. It's not it doesn't have to be so
exhausting.
Exhausting or expending. Right? You're not expending energy. It can be more nourishing, but then if you're not connecting to it, then it's I don't have time for it, right? Mm-hmm. So having a good teacher that can kind of guide you through that, and that's the challenge, is finding that kind of guidance, right?
Yeah.
But
so this workshop, is this for beginners?
It's for grapplers. So it's yoga for grapplers.
And it's not, you don't have to have any prior yoga experience or anything like that?
It's more targeted towards people who have no idea what yoga is, I imagine, and maybe Jim will know more. I would ask him, but he I think it's more targeted towards people who don't know anything about yoga, who are interested in how it can help. Basically, your question, like, what can I do as a practice for myself to kind of incorporate? And the best thing about yoga is you don't need anyone. Grappling, you kind of need people. Right.
I mean, there are partner exercises, but it's not.
But you
the
generally
entirety
need
of the
another
practice.
person. Like if I want to practice a couple moves, I need a buddy. I'd be like, hey, can we practice yoga? You know, you have 10 minutes in the morning. You have something that can make your night yoga, your night grappling session a little bit more productive, right? And I think that's the value more than anything is your self practice. And I think of every class that I've ever gone to has been this like. And I think of it in jiu-jitsu too, it's just this collection for myself. As selfish as that sounds, that's how I learn. It's like, I just take things that I love and it becomes my practice, right? And yoga is like that. I can go to a yoga class and I do that whenever I travel. I try to find somewhere to go to a practice. And sometimes it's terrible. And like, I don't like that. Sometimes amazing. And I get so many ideas and things that really connected to my body and how I should move and things like that. And I'm sure it's just like that when you go, or at least it is when I go to like a seminar in yoga or in jiu-jitsu, excuse me. And sometimes I'll take everything. It's like, man, that fits my
right
game.
in my game. Yeah.
Or it's like, none of that worked for me, you know?
Right.
And you just kind of let that stuff fade or pass, and everything else that works for you, take. And yoga can be that, right? So if you do go to classes, right, it's tough when you first start. It's hard to navigate the waters of something new. And it's same with grappling. So imagine this is a yoga podcast. We're a bunch of yogis and we're talking like, hey, we got to get in. This guy does jiu-jitsu. Yeah. Just go to this gym. You know, it's tough because you don't know how that's going to turn out or where, you know, it's definitely, there's a lot of facets to it. It's pretty broad.
Do they do competition yoga?
They do, actually.
Is that a
thing? They do. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of that idea, but
interesting.
A lot of people aren't.
they actually do. Yeah. They actually have that. It's like, I don't know all the history of it.
Like, what do they do? Longest handstand?
It's like routines and things. It's interesting. You can Google it.
Like katas in karate. They're trying to like grade the way you do it.
Yeah, and like the form and things like that. But
and now there's like Bikram and there's all these different types of yoga.
Yeah.
Do you like hot yoga or is that
so like you definitely have to have you have to have some kind of label, right? So if I'm just like I'm doing a movement class, sometimes it's kind of people don't understand what I'm talking about, right? So yoga is that brand that you can say, oh, I kind of know what that is, so I'll come to that. And,
right.
Like my classes that I teach at the jiu-jitsu school, right, at Team Curran, it's a mobility directed class. It's all about how we can be more functionally mobile and how can we move our joints and then find lasting benefits so that you don't get hurt.
Right.
Right. Where the yoga comes in is and technically, if you guys want to know, yoga just means union, right? So the definition of it is union. So uniting your breath with your movement with your mind, things like that. And so it can be yoga, right? Anything can be yoga. I think for me, like I said, my intention behind why I teach is just to keep people on the mats longer, right? So just health. So I teach a hot yoga class in Bartlett at a place called Endorphin Effect. I teach like 4 days a week or 4 classes a week, sometimes 5. And and I get a good range of people. And that's my time to teach people who aren't grapplers, right?
Right.
And then I get some people who are like, oh, tell me what else you do. And I bring them into the grappling world, so kind of get that like kind of full circle. It's definitely both sides of the world kind of combined really well. Like I've had a lot of crossover. People who just come to my yoga classes come grapple. Right. People who have just come to my grappling classes start coming to more of my yoga classes, things like that.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that crossover quite a bit. Oddly enough, LCCT is right next to Tri-Balance Yoga, so like there's crossover literally right there where people are like, oh, what's that thing over there?
Tri-Balance is great.
But yeah, like I know quite a few people that have stumbled their way from one path or the other into, like we're doing yoga. Somebody there did jujitsu, talked them into giving it a try, loved it, or vice versa. So yeah, I've always kind of seen them as kind of complementary that way.
I can't imagine not having some kind of practice of like maintenance for my body nowadays. Like I can't imagine going to a jiu-jitsu class or as much as I train like 3 times a day, sometimes for the most part. I'm always training and not having some time to like rebalance myself or just lengthen myself. Like because wrestling, grappling is always you're
Tight.
just tight. Everything's compressed and
So you're saying there's a reason I'm sore every
yeah.
night?
He's not convinced you to go to the yoga.
I try.
But I think most people develop this naturally, right? So like if you start getting injuries and things, and maybe you don't call it yoga, but you start going to therapy or physical therapy because of injuries. It's like then you just waited too long. So I think of yoga almost as like your prehabilitation.
Preventative.
Yeah, it's prehab instead of rehab. So you don't wait until you get hurt. Start working on the things. You know what I mean? Most people get injured and then they're like, "Oh, I got to fix this now."
Right.
That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
I got an injury, and now I'm going through physical therapy. And now he's like, "Dude, you don't use this muscle. We got to activate these muscles. You're overworking this muscle. You're not using this muscle." I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah. Why do you think this hurts? Because this is not. You're not using the right muscles." So now I'm doing this whole thing where he's, strengthening parts where I need to be strengthened. And I thought
a yoga practice can do that, and that's kind of yoga can be the science of how do you balance someone's body better. And I like to look at that as an idea, right? When I look at someone, when I do privates and stuff like that, like I look at what's going on, I ask them what they do, and most of them are grapplers, and I know what needs to be kind of fixed for a grappler. It's always shoulders, hips, things like this, and spine, just in general. So it's like that's the art of how do I balance someone out.
Right.
And when we practice grappling or fighting or anything like that, we never consider that because we do whatever needs to be done. And usually it's the same repetitive stuff. And this repetitive motion, right? Example is like if we do a scissor sweep to the left all the time, the way we used our core and we twist this way, it's going to have lasting damage. It's like doing the same thing over and over to the body. If you never balance that out or you never kind of, like I said, lengthen that out, it's just a matter of time. Something's going to give, after 30 years, if you want to grapple for the rest of your life, I just can't imagine, like I said, I can't imagine not doing some kind of practice to help my body feel better after all the just beating myself up and grappling. And that's what you're doing. You're beating yourself up. We are trying to
Sometimes I have help.
yeah.
But no, just sort of a random observation, but Rickson is, of course, famously,
and that's a little motivation of mine too. Like when I think about it, watching, choke and things like that. Yeah. Huge motivation. Like I almost forget about that. Like that was, and it was, I saw that when I was like 16.
Right.
But being like, oh man, like seeing the breath work and just some movements and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for those that haven't seen it, the choke documentary came out 1999, I think. Yeah. And it's a documentary on Rickson fighting in the Japan Vale Tudo, and in it he demonstrates a variety of yoga, gymnastica natural movements on the beach. He does the what is that called? Breath of fire? Is it when
some pranayama work? Just breath work.
But it's like for a lot of people who don't know what yoga is but do know what jiu-jitsu is, like that's like your first encounter. With seeing some pretty high level stuff.
Yeah.
And it's super neat. I've showed that to Zito before.
Yeah. Cool.
So you did take that as some kind of inspiration.
Yeah,
like Rickson does this, I should do this type thing.
And at the time, it was like, yeah, for me that was my only awareness of what yoga is. Right. Like it just wasn't on my radar.
It's old ladies.
Yeah, that's usually
in tight pants with a little roll up thingy, right?
And that's an Americanized kind of view of yoga too. Right. And there's so much to it. It's like anything else. You can't only have this one view of something.
Right.
But there's a lot to it, and we're talking about the physical stuff. There is so much more benefit that I've had just from the practice of it. And that's just mindfulness and breath work and things like that have really just allowed me, being an anxious person by nature and being more of a kind of in my head person. Like I'm just always, I talk more in my head than I do out.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And yoga has been that kind of way of kind of reversing that and allowing that to slow down and, more than grappling has ever been, or MMA. That sparks that sparks your anxieties and your mindlessness of just chatter, right? And I think it's really helped me from a competition standpoint. I've always competed. I've competed since I was 5. I've always done stuff like this, and you deal with anxiety and nerves. Everyone deals with stuff differently, and for me, this has been the solution to a problem that that you don't even know you have. So usually you don't even know that all this stuff is going on. To me, is the solution to something that you you just deal with it, right? You're nervous and stuff like that. Now I have something that can help me.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can always go that route. Some people never go that route when it comes, maybe they just want the physical practice, right?
Right.
But you're missing out on the benefits of something, right? And that's kind of how I look at it.
So let me ask you, or maybe you can break it down just a little bit more detail here. So I think a lot of people, when they think yoga, probably think, oh, it's a lot of poses and stretching. So obviously, if I do yoga, that's good for my flexibility. But you know, obviously from way more firsthand experience, there's a lot more to it. Even just talking the physical benefits, you know, like balance. Like, what do you feel like that helped in your jiu-jitsu the most? Like if, not to be like, if we're selling it to grapplers, but like what do you feel like are those benefits physically? Let's start first. Like, how does the breath work help? You know, does it help? Does that apply to jiu-jitsu or fighting? You know, above and beyond just flexibility. Like, does it help with your strength? Does it help with your bend?
Yeah,
Like,
I think we can start with breath, because let's
start there.
Yeah, think of your first time grappling. If you can remember your first time grappling.
I cannot.
Yeah, I can't really either when I think about it. But you can remember maybe your first time like getting exhausted grappling, and like the first thing to go, it's usually, I mean, you'll feel some fatigue in the body, but the first thing that leads to that is your breath and how you control your breath, and go grapple with, you know, as coaches, you go grapple with someone brand new. It's, at least for myself, and maybe it's because I focus on that so much, the first thing I notice on someone when they're grappling is their breath. How are they breathing? What kind of a control do they have over it? What do they even, are they even thinking about it? Or are they just trying to live, you know? Right. Which we need, and that's, you know, something that's important, right? We cannot live without our breath. And to try to fight or to try to do anything physical and not have that be a major part of it seems ridiculous. For myself now, I mean, I never thought about it before. I'm just like, oh, just go wrestle. Don't think about it. But,
I got good cardio. I'm fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine. You know, just push yourself really hard. You'll be okay. But the idea of not at least considering that as something that should be worked on. You know, we spend so much time, like grapplers, you know, to use the nerd word, like nerds, like Kyle, like we spend so much time like studying things and looking at, you know, like different, like tiny little subtle details. But a lot of people won't even like consider the one thing that keeps them alive. Right? Like practicing your breath to become a better grappler. So breath control is something that is a big practice of mine, and I do a lot of pranayama work that we were, you know, and there's a bunch of different types of work or of drills and things like that. But I would say that's one of the underrated qualities, because everyone's going to instantly think flexibility, maybe even strength. And then like we were saying, prehabilitation, and these are all great things. But I'd say one of the most underrated or least talked about is that idea of breath work and being able to just control your breath a little bit more. Because, you know, like I said, when I roll with someone, that's the first thing I notice. And I actually use that as a gauge a lot when I'm competing, especially in MMA too. But I can kind of read people based off of their breath. Because I know what controlled breath sounds like, or how I feel when I'm controlling my breath. And I know when I'm starting to lose control of my breath, that's my indication of where I can push, where I can, you know, kind of have to pull back or can find a little bit more control. But I can now read people and be like, oh, this is good. This person's getting tired. They have no control of this. And you can start to push the pace on them. And it is like an indicator of their stress level. And we think of like the parasympathetic nervous state and sympathetic nervous state, whether they're fight or flight, or when they're actually being able to control this and just allow their brain to work, right? Because the moment our brain starts to shut off when we get into that fight or flight, and when the chest is breathing, right? When you're breathing in your chest and you're just hyperventilating, the likelihood that they can make a rational choice when they're pressured,
right? When they're fighting against their own,
when they're fighting themselves, and the moment we can bring that into diaphragmatic breath and starting to bring that down, we can now use our logic and our thought a little bit more than we could if we were panicked. And I know that seems, you know, there's definitely ways to go about that, and we can, you know, go into details of like how you can practice things like that. But at the end of the day, it's just the awareness, right? It all draws back to this idea of using your mind and actually practicing mindfulness, instead of being like, oh, I just need to stretch more, or I just need to, you know, push myself harder. There's a sense of the mind being really what drives everything, and be able to control your mind, to control your breath, to control your body, right? And that brings us back to yoga.
Yeah, wow, it's fantastic. I know we got to get going. Did you guys bring gis or anything?
I'm always ready. No, I brought shorts.
Shorts?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to do no-gi?
Just
Yeah, yeah,
No-gi
yeah.
technique?
Stuff, yeah.
Oh, sweet. All right.
I don't know. Maybe we should also give the listening audience a little taste of some yoga too.
Oh, yeah. I'm going
Oh,
to
yeah?
show some
Yeah,
yoga
Kyle,
poses.
Kyle,
too.
you gonna show us some yoga?
Some yoga. Let's do some yoga. Just stretch me out. I almost touched my toes.
Where can people find you?
Instagram, you can find me on Instagram, Real Deal, BJJ. I also have a yoga page.
Yeah.
And it's kind of goofy, but yeah.
Shout that one out too,
I
man.
split those mostly for myself so that I can like
Keep it organized.
Yeah, keep myself organized.
Yeah.
People are like, "Why did you do that?" I was like, "I don't know, it just made more sense." So
did you go by Real Deal Yoga as well?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that makes
Deal,
sense.
my last name, Diehl. But yeah, that's it, man. You can you can just Google me and try to stay up to date with fights and stuff like that.
Yeah, what-
but I post everything
Got
on
anything
Instagram.
upcoming?
The goal, I have a goal for December, something local. That's a goal. But
MMA
nothing's-
or jiu-jitsu?
MMA.
MMA. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I'll try to do some jiu-jitsu stuff. Kyle, when's the next jiu-jitsu tournament?
We're gonna definitely do Grappling Industries December 1st. That's
December
the big one
1st.
in the area, so we'll
Probably
definitely be
do
doing
that too.
Grappling Industries. And then there's one in Wisconsin too the week before that, so we'll probably be doing that too. So
Oh, cool.
catch us in the area.
We got it's Naga, right? Naga on the 10th.
Yeah, November 10th.
That's
I think
where
is
we're
Naga.
gonna bring some kids to that. So I have like my little army of kids. That'll be fun.
Cool.
Yeah, and then yeah, MMA December. That's the goal. But the cool thing is, I'm pretty relaxed about it. I'm not like when I first started MMA. It was like I need to fight. I fought every single month. Sometimes twice. One time I fought twice in 1 week. I would fight. I fought on a Tuesday and then fought on a Saturday.
Oh wow.
And that was just just craziness. When you first start, you're just like, I don't care. I'll just keep going. And now I'm so much. It's nice to have the freedom of being like, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, what's the rush? So, I've had some different offers and things that I've skipped on, and I never would have done that a
Right,
couple years
right,
ago.
right.
I would have done anything.
give me every and all fights.
And it's
everybody,
nice
yeah.
to be like, I don't have to say yes to every single thing. I can find the right times to fight, and yeah, it's a lot more enjoyable. So hopefully December.
Cool. And Kyle, where can people find you?
Instagram, same. I think I'm Professor Percolator on there, but you just type my name in, Kyle Perkins. Yeah, I'm going to be doing the Grappling Games Pro card in 2 weeks, so
Oh,
I'll
yeah?
be on there. Yeah, we got two
cool.
other teammates on there, Nolan Vincent Ender. I
Yeah.
don't want to say Ender's last name. It's a
I
little
can't say
long
it.
for me, but yeah.
Call
so
him Ling Ling.
Yeah. So we got three
By
of
his
us
own
on there.
choice.
So
Okay.
Let's go.
yeah, we'll be competing a lot. Probably doing that Tap Out Cancer too. That's a big event coming up
Yeah.
in 3 weeks, so a lot of
Yeah.
people should be doing that, trying to support other local people.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I donated to the one of a kid's students in our
cool.
school for that.
That's
It
a cool event. I
that's
love stuff like that. That's awesome.
That's really good. And we're trying to get him on the podcast. We're trying to see if this works out for us
Right.
with him. But
Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
Yeah, cool. Awesome, guys. Let's go well, I can't do any jujitsu, but I'll go film you guys
You
do
can go
jujitsu.
observe. Sadly.
Right on.
Cool. Nice meeting you guys. We'll see you guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Very Hard to Submit. Go to vhtsny.com and check out their kimonos, compression gear, and apparel. This is a brand we are excited to be supported by. Their gear is high quality with a clean design. Go to vhtsny.com and see for yourself. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. For more information about Grappler Union Podcast, you could visit us at our website at grapplerunion.com. You can follow us on Instagram at Grappler Union. Please like us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. And all of our episodes are available on our YouTube channel. Say what?
Be sure to subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe to all that shit. You got to do another take, right?
Oh.